The wind whispered through the crumbling stones of an ancient city, Ephesus, proud once, now weary. Beneath its worn arches, a man stirred. Dust clung to his cloak. His armor, dulled by neglect, bore no crest. His eyes, when they opened, were vacant, not of soul, but of story. He did not know who he was. He rose slowly from the roadside, stumbling toward the ruined colonnades. The city hummed with strange familiarity, like the scent of a dream half remembered. He walked past vendors, past Roman guards, past the temple shadows. No one seemed to notice him. He reached a stone well in the town square and drank deeply. A voice behind him, hoarse and wise, broke the stillness. "You are late, soldier." He turned. An old man stood cloaked in blue eyes, bright with unseen fire. "I don't know you," the man replied. The elder's gaze did not waver. "You don't know yourself, but I know who you were." The soldier's hand tightened around the cup. The elder nodded. "You were one of us, a shield-bearer in the King's Legion, but the war, it shattered many things. Memory is often the first to go." Silence. Then, gently, the elder pulled from his robe a scroll sealed in wax. "This came from Paul the Apostle. He wrote it for you." He held it out. The seal cracked. Words spilled like light. "He chose us in him before the foundation of the world." The soldier stared. Something ancient stirred in his chest like a bell tolling in forgotten chambers. He sat beneath the olive tree long into the dusk. The scroll lay open across his lap, its words burning like coals, silent, slow, insistent. "He chose us." The phrase circled in his mind like a hawk over desert stones. But how could that be? How could the Most High choose one like him? His hands were not clean. His dreams, or what fragments remained, were filled with screams, broken swords, fleeing shadows. Had he not once stood on a battlefield and fled? Had he not cursed the heavens when silence answered his prayer? A dog barked in the distance. The city dimmed. The night crept in. He stared at his reflection in the basin, a face weathered by loss. And beneath the wear, a scar near his temple, old, jagged, forgotten. He touched it, trembling, a flash fire falling stone. A name screamed in the dark. His name or someone else's. He looked back to the scroll. In love, he predestined us for adoption. Adoption, not conscription. Chosen, not chained. He whispered the words again, softer this time, as if they might vanish if spoken too loud. Adopted. And in that moment, something shifted. Not memory, not fully, but the weight of being unloved. Cracked, not shattered, but cracked. He pressed the scroll to his chest and wept. Morning broke like gold across the rooftops of Ephesus. He stood now at the elder's door, scroll tied to his side with a leather cord. His step was hesitant, but no longer aimless. The old man opened before he could knock. "Something in the words stirred you," he said. The soldier nodded. "Not memory, not yet. But I feel as if I've been claimed." The elder smiled. "Then you are ready." He stepped aside. On the table inside lay a bundle, a worn tunic, a pair of sandals, and a staff etched with ancient script. Symbols of a journey not of distance, but of remembrance. "You must walk the path of the 10 truths," the elder said. "Paul's letter is not ink on parchment, it is a mirror. Each truth will call something buried back to life." "And what if I fail?" the soldier asked. "You won't." Outside, the sun climbed higher. Bells rang from the temple beyond. The city moved, unaware that one of its own had begun to awaken. He tied the staff to his back, bowed in silence, and took his first step into the unknown. Not as a nameless drifter, but as one called chosen, adopted. Not by fate, but by the King. If you've ever felt lost in your own faith story, like something inside you was asleep waiting, then this journey is for you. Subscribe now. Follow the path with us. Because every forgotten warrior deserves to remember who they truly are. Where guilt whispers louder than truth, and the wounded soul meets the mercy that does not flinch. The path led him beyond the marble walls and busy stalls of Ephesus. Dust rose at every step as he followed a winding trail toward the olive groves, where the poor and forgotten lived on the edge of the city and of memory. She lived in a low house with no gate. Its roof sagged. The herbs hanging by the window danced like faded prayers. She opened the door before he could speak. "You've come back," she said. He blinked. "I have." The woman's face creased with time and care, but her eyes softened. "You stumbled into my yard years ago," she said. "Bloodied, barely breathing. I prayed over you. You slept for 3 nights straight." He stepped inside, wordless. On the wall hung a faded cloth embroidered with a lion and a lamb. "I don't remember," he said, his voice low. She poured water into a clay bowl, handed it to him. "That's all right. Grace does not wait for your memory. It moves first." He drank slowly. "Why? Why would you help me?" She smiled. "Because I was helped once too. And the one who helped me never asked for worth." He stared at the folds in the cloth, at the lion stitched in gold, resting beside the lamb. "I've done things," he whispered. "Things no scroll could ever cleanse." The widow said nothing. She sat across from him, hands folded like unopened pages. Her silence was not cold, it was invitation. "I fled a battle, left men behind. I cursed the heavens when the fire rained. I chose my own skin over their lives." He breathed heavy. "They called me coward. They were right." Her voice came like oil on stone. "And yet you lived." He looked up ashamed. "That's not mercy. That's mockery." "No," she said, "that's grace." She leaned closer. "Grace is not pity. It is not a second chance earned by guilt. It is a gift, freely given, fully paid by someone who owed you nothing and loved you anyway." He wanted to argue, but something inside cracked not out of protest, but release. "Then why do I still feel so dirty?" She rose slowly and walked to a shelf. From it, she took a small jar of oil. "This is what I used on your wounds," she said. She handed it to him. "It's not the oil that healed you. It was love." That night he lay on a cot beneath the stars. The scroll rested near his chest, and the widow's oil lingered faintly on his skin, warm, fragrant, stubborn in its comfort. But peace did not come. Instead, a shadow crept into his thoughts. Not a voice from the widow, not a memory, a whisper, silken, sharp. "She pities you. You were spared, not saved." He sat up, heart pounding. "You think one act of kindness cleanses the stain." The voice did not thunder. It needn't. It only echoed what already lingered in his soul. "You're a fraud playing saint in borrowed robes." He stood breath shallow, scroll clutched tight. "Leave me," he muttered. "I belong to..." "To what? To whom?" The voice laughed. "You remember the shame more than the Savior." Silence. Then a thought, not his own, yet truer than breath. "You are saved by grace, not by works, lest any man should boast." The whisper recoiled. Light flickered across the room from within. The scroll shimmered, the oil jar gleamed. He fell to his knees. Not from fear, but from truth. If you've ever heard that voice, the one that says, "You'll never be enough," let me tell you, it's not your Father speaking. Subscribe now. Walk this path with us. Grace is louder than guilt. Where vision and reality collide, and the throne of heaven calls the unworthy to rise. Night wrapped the city like a darkened shroud. And in that quiet sleep came heavy and strange. He stood in a vast hall unlike any earthly throne room. Its walls pulsed with living light. Its floor shimmered with gold that bent like wind-blown grass. There was no ceiling, only a sky of fire and stars. A voice deeper than thunder, gentler than rain, called out, "Come forward." He walked, though his feet never touched the ground. Before him stood a throne terrible in majesty, veiled in flame. At its right hand, a figure shone robed in white, crowned in glory. Eyes like eternity-scarred hands outstretched. And beside that figure, a seat empty. The voice spoke again. "This is where you are." The soldier froze. "Me no. I am nothing. I fled. I failed. I forgot." But the flame did not flicker. The throne did not tremble. "You are seated with Christ," the voice declared. "Not because you climbed, but because he descended." And the seat beside the king blazed with light. He reached for it and woke. He woke with a cry, sweat on his brow, heart pounding. The vision clung to him like smoke, but the room around him was stone and dust, no throne, no light, only hunger, only dirt. Outside, vendors shouted over fish and coin. A beggar limped past the window. The widow sang to her goats. It was all too ordinary. He stood staring at his reflection in a cracked bronze plate. Not a prince, not a warrior, just a broken man in borrowed clothes. "Seated with Christ," he whispered. The words sounded foolish, now a child's dream. And then it came again, that voice, mocking, clever. "Ah, yes, the throne. Tell me what kind of king wakes in a stranger's hut? What kind of royalty begs for healing, chokes on shame, sleeps on straw?" He clenched his fists. "You're no heir," it hissed. "You're an orphan playing dress-up in heaven's robes." But deep within, something pushed back faint but fierce. "You are seated with him in the heavenly realms." The voice faltered. He gripped the scroll, not for comfort, but as a sword. He left the house before dawn. The scroll pressed firm against his chest, its words burning louder than his doubts. He walked past merchants and idols, past laughter that felt hollow and eyes that did not see him. And still the whisper pursued him. "Kings don't hide. Warriors don't weep." He stopped at the great stairs of the amphitheater, where once mobs had raged against Paul. He climbed slowly, each step a rebellion. At the top, he looked out across the city. Smoke rose from the temple of Artemis. Coins clinked in the shrines below. And yet above it all, he remembered. Not what he had done, but where he was seated. Far above its all rule and authority. He closed his eyes, not to escape, to align. "I may be dirt here," he whispered, "but I am enthroned there." And the voice that whispered fell strangely silent. He turned, descended the steps. For the first time, he walked not from fear or penance, but from position. Not to prove, but to proclaim. If the world tells you that power is measured by status, remember, your seat is already secured. Subscribe now. Learn to walk from heaven, not crawl toward it. Where strangers become siblings and isolation is shattered by divine belonging. The alleyways narrowed as he followed the singing. No crowds, no temples, just faint voices rising through cracks in stone. He turned the final corner and saw them. A gathering in a cellar lit by oil lamps and worn hope. Children sat cross-legged. A woman nursed an infant while reciting scripture. An old man blind lifted his hands in worship. He froze at the threshold. Their joy was unpolished, their robes unmatched, and yet they shone. Someone noticed him. A young man stepped forward. "Brother," he said simply. "Come." The words struck like lightning. "Brother." The soldier hesitated. "I don't even know my name." The man smiled. "Then let us call you what we were called, family." A space opened for him. He stepped in. There was no ceremony, no grand welcome. Just bread-broken hands offered eyes that said, "You belong." And for a moment, the ache of exile loosened its grip. Not vanished, but loosened. They sang long into the night. Not with skill, but with surrender. A woman stood and shared how her husband had been jailed for refusing to bow to Artemis. A child prayed for bread with more faith than fear. An elder recited from memory, "You are no longer strangers and foreigners, but members of God's household." Each word fell like rain on his thirst. And yet beneath it all, a shadow loomed. Heavy boots echoed above them. Laughter, cruel and hollow, filtered from the streets. The world did not see this household as holy, only dangerous. Suddenly the door burst open. A Roman official appeared flanked by 2 guards. "Who leads this gathering?" he barked. No one moved. Then the blind elder stepped forward. "I do." The guards seized him rough and swift. The child cried out. The soldier rose to his feet, muscles tensed. But the elder raised one hand gently, not in fear, but in peace. "Let them go," the soldier growled. But the guards had already turned. They left, leaving only silence. The soldier sat again. His heart burned, with helplessness, with belonging. That night, sleep would not come. He sat outside the cellar beneath a flickering torch as shadows shifted like ghosts across the alley walls. The voice returned. "You see, even here you're an outsider. They suffer because you entered." He clenched his jaw. "Leave, before they bleed more." He almost stood. But then the door creaked open. The blind elder, bruised but unbowed, stepped out. "You heard it too," the old man said softly. The soldier nodded. "It tells me I don't belong." The elder placed a frail hand on his chest. "You belong not because you feel it, but because he said it." The soldier trembled. "But I bring danger." "No," the elder replied. "You bring light where it's most needed." He turned back inside, leaving the soldier alone and not alone. He whispered aloud, defiant, "I am no longer a stranger, but part of his household." And for the first time, the voice said nothing. If you've ever felt like faith was a room you couldn't enter, this truth is yours. You're not a guest, you're family. Subscribe to walk deeper into the household of God and help someone else find their way home, where the prayers we whisper meet the God who thunders, and small faith meets immeasurable power. The city buzzed with noise, but the alley behind the olive press was quiet, unnaturally so. There, in a soot-blackened corner, a forge glowed red. A man stood over it, hammering metal with precise rhythm. His eyes were clouded blind, but his strikes landed true. The soldier watched. "You've come," the smith said without turning. "I didn't speak," the soldier replied. "You didn't need to. Power has a scent and you reek of unused strength." The smith quenched the blade, turned slowly. "You carry authority, but you've worn it like guilt." The soldier frowned. "I don't understand." The smith approached. His hands were scarred, his breath slow. "I once fought in the war of shadows," he said. "But when I began to rely on my own strength, I lost my sight." He smiled faintly. "Best thing that ever happened to me." The soldier whispered, "Why?" "Because I stopped trusting what I could see and started believing what God had said." The hammer struck again. Faith, not force. That's where the power lies. The smith gestured toward a bench. "Sit and tell me when you pray. What do you ask for?" The soldier hesitated. "For safety, strength to endure, forgiveness." The smith shook his head slowly. "Safe prayers, small prayers." He stepped closer, voice low, eyes blind but piercing. "Do you believe God is good?" "Yes." "And powerful, yes." "Then why do you pray like he's reluctant?" The soldier had no answer. The smith lifted a bucket, poured water over the glowing blade. Steam rose like incense. "You ask for crumbs," he said, "but your father owns the feast." He placed a hand on the soldier's shoulder. "Pray again. Here. Now." The soldier inhaled, unsure. "No, how?" "Speak like you believe," he hears. "And speak what you truly desire." So he did. At first the words came soft, then stronger. Not eloquent, but honest. "Let me walk in your power, not my shame. Teach me to trust your voice above the noise. And shake this city if you must, but do not let me stay asleep." The forge flared. Outside, thunder rolled through the skies were clear. The clouds broke open. Rain did not fall, but the air shifted heavy with presence. The smith stepped back. His face lifted slightly. He smiled. "You felt it," he said. The soldier nodded. It was more than a feeling. It was weight. It was movement. It was God. You prayed like one who remembers where he sits, the smith said. Then he pointed to the soldier's chest. Now you must guard that fire, because the enemy has heard it too. He reached into a wooden chest and pulled out a folded cloth, a belt not of gold, but of woven iron threads. The first piece of your armor, he said. Truth. Without it, the rest will fall. The soldier took it. It was heavier than expected. Wear it. Not around your waist, but your soul. He turned to leave. And as he stepped into the streets again, the wind howled, but this time it wasn't nature. It was warning. A presence now hunted him, not Roman, not human, but real. Have you ever prayed something that changed the atmosphere around you? Tell us in the comments. Your story might awaken someone else's faith. Where darkness knocks with a familiar face and every compromise carries a cost. He found the old soldier in a courtyard of ashes. Bent with age, wrapped in silence, the man polished a breastplate that had long ceased to shine. It bore scars not from rust, but from war. You wore this? The younger man asked. I did the old one, replied his voice, like gravel. And I bled in it. He handed it over slowly, reverently. The younger man took it, inspecting the dents, the faded crest, the single jagged crack along the left flank. It's broken. No, the old soldier said. It's true. He pointed to the crack. That's where I let bitterness nest. Silence stretched. I fought well, but I never forgave the one who betrayed me. I wore righteousness, but let rage fester. And so, he tapped the crack. The enemy found his way in. The younger man looked down at the armor. You still kept it? Yes. Because grace repaired what pride could not. He pressed the breastplate into the soldier's chest. Guard your heart, son, not with anger, but with him. He left the courtyard with armor on his chest and questions in his gut. The city no longer felt neutral. Streets twisted strangely. Eyes lingered longer. Then a voice. Still hiding behind words and relics, are you? He turned. A man stood there familiar. Once a friend in battle. But his eyes now shimmered with something cold, something ancient. Jonas, the soldier, whispered. The man smiled. But it wasn't Jonas's smile. Some names are borrowed, the voice said. Others are bought. He stepped closer. I remember when you broke, when you ran, when you chose survival over loyalty. The soldier clenched his fists. I was afraid. Exactly, Jonas sneered. And fear, well, fear opens doors. He circled him now. Tell me, soldier, is it still there, that crack inside? The soldier looked down. The breastplate shimmered in the light, but the crack pulsed faintly. Let me in, Jonas said, voice darkening. Just one whisper, one wound, one grudge, and you'll be mine again. The soldier stepped back, breath shaking. But something within whispered, do not give the devil a foothold. The crack pulsed like a wound, remembering pain. Jonas stepped closer. You don't need to kneel. Just hold on to what they did. Let it harden. The soldier's jaw tightened. Memories surged, betrayal blood the night he was left behind. And then the scroll's words whispered back. Get rid of all bitterness, anger, slander. His fists unclenched. I remember now, he said softly. Good Jonas grinned. I remember what I carried, the soldier continued, but more than that, I remember what he carried. He looked Jonas in the eye. I forgive them. The air cracked. The crack on the armor sealed with light. Jonas recoiled, eyes wide. The darkness behind his gaze shrieked, folding into shadow. He vanished. The street fell still. The soldier exhaled, falling to his knees. Not from fear, from freedom. He touched his breastplate. Whole. Some battles aren't won by striking, but by surrendering. Have you ever carried a wound too long? Share it in the comments and let grace finish what pain began. Where every effort seems to fail, but the one who remains unmoved walks in true power. The cry came at dawn. A girl, writhing in the dust, limbs, twisted voice, not her own, Crowds gathered. Some whispered, others jeered. She's cursed. No priest will touch her. But he stepped forward. The soldier. No title. No temple. No weapon save the scroll bound to his side. He knelt beside her. The thing within her hissed. You have no right. He spoke not in volume, but in authority. She is not yours. The girl convulsed. People stepped back. The voice inside her screamed. She invited me. She believed the lie. The soldier whispered, she belongs to the king. And he prayed. Not poetry, just presence. Jesus be here. The girl thrashed. Then stillness. Then silence. He opened his eyes. Her eyes opened too. Clear, afraid, free. She wept, and so did he. Word spread. The man who cast out darkness without incense or incantation. They brought him the sick, the tormented, the desperate, and he prayed. Once, twice, again, but nothing happened. The blind remained blind. The lame still crawled. The mother's tears never dried. He stepped back, heart pounding. Had the power fled? Was the first miracle a fluke? Or worse, had he begun to believe in himself? He returned to the alley alone, dropped to his knees. Why won't you move? Silence. No thunder, no flame, just stillness. A whisper rose not from heaven, but habit. You failed. He bowed lower. Then the scroll's voice stirred again. And after you have done everything to stand, not fight, not flee, just stand. So he did. In the dark, in the silence, in the in-between. And the ground beneath him felt suddenly sacred. The city forgot quickly. Another healer would come. Another prophet would fail. But he remained. He greeted the girl who had been freed. He sat with the lame who still limped. He broke bread with the blind man who still waited for sight. He did not perform. He simply stayed. And in staying, he stood. Then one night a widow approached. I prayed again, she whispered. And the pain is gone. The next day a father said, the nightmares left my son. No spectacle, just fruit. He smiled, though tears brimmed. It was never about signs. It was about trust. The righteous shall live by faith. And sometimes faith doesn't roar. It roots, it holds, it endures. He looked at the scroll one last time that night and traced the words. Stand firm then. And he did. Has God ever asked you to stand when you wanted to run? Tell us, below your faith might hold someone else upright. Where memory returns, identity is sealed, and the nameless warrior writes the next scroll. He climbed the ridge before dawn. Stone by stone, breath by breath, scroll bound tight to his side. The city slept below, unaware, unchanged. But something in him had shifted. At the summit stood an old altar. Broken, burnt, forgotten by men, but not by heaven. He knelt, and the memories came, not in flashes, but in fullness. The battlefield, the betrayal, the silence, the grace. And then a name, his name, not the one they mocked, not the one he had buried, but the name spoken when the world was young, when stars first sang, when dust was first kissed into breath. A whisper in the wind carried it now, and he wept, because it was not a name of shame. It was not a name of failure. It was son. He took the scroll from his side, but this time not to read, to write. With trembling fingers, he opened to the blank space near the end. The ink was old, the parchment dry, but the spirit within was fresh as fire. He began, to those who have forgotten who they are, to the weary, the wounded, the waiting. You are not forsaken. You are not a mistake. You were chosen before time, sealed by grace, and placed with Christ above all. The words poured like rain. He did not force them. He simply remembered. Not just what had happened, but who had carried him through it. So stand firm, not because you are strong, but because he is. He signed it with a mark no one else would recognize. a seal between soldier and king. He tied the scroll, bound it in linen, and placed it in the altar's hollow. For the next one, he whispered, the next forgotten warrior. He descended the ridge at twilight, the scroll no longer at his side, but the words now etched in his bones. Children waved as he passed. The girl once tormented ran to greet him laughing. The widow handed him bread without asking. He nodded to the blacksmith, sat once more with the blind elder. But he no longer needed to be seen. He knew who he was. Later that night, he passed the gates of Ephesus. No ceremony, no songs, just the quiet steps of a man who had remembered his name. He walked east toward new cities, new battles, new scrolls to write. The war had not ended, but he no longer feared it, for he wore the armor, and he knew the voice of the king. Have you found your name in the story? Share. What part of this journey stirred your heart? Your words may be the scroll someone else needs to remember who they are. And if you haven't yet, begin again. The king never forgets.